Hi, Amy. Thanks for helping my project. Could you say a little bit about yourself?
Yeah, sure. My name's Amy Nelson. I'm 30 years old. I have two twin boys that are about 16 months, and I work for a tech company called Anaplan.
I know a little bit about that company, but what are some of your hobbies and interests?
Um, well, I live in Colorado, so I really like to be outdoors. I try to hit the slopes in the winter. Like to bike in the summer and be outside, soaking up the sun as much as I can.
And right now you're in Arizona.
Yeah, we're on vacation right now in Arizona. We're going back to Colorado on Saturday to the snow.
I went to Tucson, Arizona last September for a conference on interstellar spaceflight.
Awesome. Right down the road from me. We're actually between Phoenix and Tucson, so.
Okay, yeah. Have you been to the Biosphere?
No.
It's over there in Oracle, Arizona, right next to Tucson. So I might want to swing by.
Yeah, that's cool.
So did you know that NASA is planning to send astronauts to the moon again for the first time since 1972?
I didn't actually know that until I signed up to be a part of this project and to be on this interview with you. I had heard of, I think SpaceX is planning or trying to get to Mars. So I'd heard of that, but I actually didn't know that we're sending folks back to the moon.
Most of the people I talk to who's not space people, because you can imagine I've gotten a lot of space people to sign up for this, and they kind of know about it, but non-space people don't. And I guess I got two questions for you. One is it important that they know? And then two is, if it is important, what do you think NASA should do to get the word out?
Yeah, I mean, to be honest, I think it's important, and it's a little shocking that we sent people to the moon over 50 years ago, and we're still only going to be sending people back to the moon. It seems like in this day and age and the total paradigm shift with the internet and technology that we should be a lot farther ahead. And I don't know, like, I'm not really a space person, like you said. So I don't know the history of NASA's funding. I know it's been cut, it's been kind of somewhat revived. There's like this thing of Space Force, and it's just to me, it's a shame that we aren't going further and that we've ever cut funding, to be honest. That's how I feel.
And could you maybe dig a little bit deeper and why do you feel that way?
Yeah, it just seems like we've made all these advances in all these other areas and not in space travel, even if we're not, sending humans. I mean, just exploring space in general seems like something that we should be farther along. And I think it's important because there is, global warming is a looming threat. And I think it's also just curiosity in human nature. I personally want to know what else is out there, and if there are resources or if we can send people to colonize or whatever. I think it's important to know, or at least to try.
And what do you think we'll get out of going to the moon? I mean, like, what would make it worthwhile for you?
That's a great question. I haven't thought a lot about it. Again, I feel like we do know a good amount about the moon. We've sent rovers, had people there. It's almost like, to be honest, like, why are we doing this again? Why aren't we going further? To me, not to sound too pessimistic, but it seems like I'm not sure what the goals of the mission are to go to the moon this time. But I do think it's important that we are expanding beyond that as soon as we can.
Yeah, I mean, one thing that we discovered since the last time we went to the moon was that there's actually appears to be large volumes of water ice in these permanently shadowed areas and craters on the poles. And so we're thinking that might be a resource that could actually help to enable further travel.
Cool.
Because I think it cost about $1 million to launch a pound of stuff to the moon. Yeah.
Wow.
So, water is expensive, like, what, 11 pounds per gallon or something like that. So, a gallon of water would be like 11 million bucks.
Yeah, no kidding.
Oh, yeah. But and there's a whole document about science objectives, which, and then just the idea that, we don't know what we don't know type of thing. And, practicing to go further. I mean, one thing that I've realized as I've gone through like this flight controller training, how much support the astronauts get from the ground. Like, people on the ground are controlling the temperature, monitoring the airflow, making sure the batteries stay charged, and all these other things. But whenever you start getting further away from Earth, that's not really possible. So how do you create a spacecraft where all that can happen with just the people on board? So
Yeah. And the time, right? I mean, the time it takes to travel is still, I don't think, has improved that much. And that's the biggest hindrance, right, of really space exploration for us, is that it's, things are many light years away, and we just can't sustain that long, or have the fuel, etc. So
yeah, exactly. I mean, like the Voyager probes, I think we launched in the early 70s, have just gone out into interstellar space, and it'll be, probably hundreds of years before they actually end up in someplace else.
yeah.
So if it was, so where do you see the future of humanity going?
That's a tough question to answer right now, especially with everything going on with Russia invading Ukraine. It's pretty intense and scary, of, this chance we could be heading into a third world war, and, global warming is increasingly threatening. I'd mentioned we've made all these technological leaps and bounds, and it seems like that's the one area that we're not doing a good job at, is taking care of our planet and our resources to live. So, I mean, I'm hopeful. I think there's a lot of great people in the world, a lot of really smart people. But it's definitely a tumultuous time right now, and can be pretty scary. So hard to answer.
One thing I've noticed when doing this project is, well, I mean, like, as a general rule, it feels like that people are very tribal, and that they're just going around in groups, and they're part of like a group or not part of a group, and that's like, they're not thinking, it's not deeper than that. But whenever I ask that question, like anybody, like people at Starbucks, I have not come up across somebody who didn't have like a really thoughtful response to it. I mean, it's like, I think society is asking the wrong questions of people, who's your long distance provider? How big do you want your coffee? And who'd you vote for whenever? Well,
Yeah.
You could do so much more.
Yeah, it's interesting. I agree. I think the last couple of years, I mean, especially in the US, has been it feels more political to me, for sure. And it's funny, I've listened to a few podcasts, and I was listening to one where Stanley Tucci was being interviewed, and he talks about in Italy, they don't really care who you voted for. They care, what food you're eating. And that says so much about who you are and where you're from in the country. But in the US, we're so bound to these political ideas, and it's frustrating. I agree with you. I think there's a lot of divide right now. And I truly believe, whether you're a Republican or Democrat, I believe, the 80-20 rule, that 80% of us probably agree on most things and have a lot more in common than we care to admit, I guess, or that we talk about. And, there's 20% that is really polarizing. And I wish that as a society in general, we were better at asking more important questions, or, finding things to identify that were, in my opinion, more important.
Yeah, definitely. But I got a question in the future. Do you see humanity expanding beyond the Earth?
I mean, I hope so. I think again with like funding being kind of up and down, it's been kind of interesting the last few years to see a little bit more of the private sector around space travel. Virgin, I don't know what they're calling themselves, but Richard Branson and Elon Musk, and I hope so. I think that there's a lot out there, but I don't think that I'll see it in my lifetime.
So Elon Musk, you mentioned him and his company SpaceX. He plans to build a million-person city on Mars by 2050.
And also run Tesla, and however there are many ventures he has, and going on 6 hours of sleep or 4 hours of sleep or whatever he touts.
I know, I feel
I
like
mean,
such a achiever.
yeah, I mean, super smart guy. I mean, I read his autobiography a couple years ago. It's very interesting, obviously brilliant, but yeah, I mean, I would love to see that happen. A million people seems pretty lofty goal.
I was just thinking, so you had like the Wright brothers in what, 1901, um, fly the first heavier than aircraft. I wonder how long it was before you had a million airline passengers.
Yeah.
Is that 30 years, 40, 50? I mean, I wonder, I don't know, but I think that's something I like to look up.
Yeah. Yeah, it would be interesting for sure. I mean, yeah, I mean, you think about the kind of the accelerators in the early 1900s versus now. I mean, you're still going to space. I mean, it's so expensive, even right now, right? There have been several private flights that have left the atmosphere, I think, and they're really expensive.
Yeah, that's true. That's true. But I mean, Elon Musk is working on like a completely reusable spacecraft that could actually make like 3 flights a day,
Land
carry 100
itself,
people.
right?
Yeah,
Yeah.
exactly. So the thought is that if you only had to pay for fuel, you could really reduce the cost. And, it might be a key enabler, you like, I mean, it's like cheap computers and then suddenly everybody has one.
It's so true, right? And TVs is like, remember buying a TV in the early 2000s was so much money, and now you can buy such a great TV that's smart for $200, and that's true. I hope that there's some economies of scale and they can, really accelerate. That would be amazing.
And then they were very heavy too. The
Huh?
the TVs that you bought in 2000s are like so heavy.
Yeah, I feel like it's probably a lot to just pay someone to get rid of one of those these days.
You can't. I mean, you can't leave it on your curb. You can't give it away to Goodwill. Nobody will take them.
Yeah.
There's some retro gamer people that will actually pay for them, but it's kind of interesting.
Yeah.
Um, if it was safe and affordable, would you take one of those trips?
Yeah, I think so. I think by the time it was safe and affordable, or that it was affordable, there would be enough, people who have gone that there would be some empirical evidence that it was safe. Then yeah, I would.
How far would you go? Just to orbit, to the moon? Would you immigrate to Mars if he creates that million-person city?
I'm probably not going to sign up to be in the first million to go, but I guess that depends. If in 50 years from now that things on Earth aren't so great, then yeah, I guess I would consider it. I guess it just kind of depends on where we are as a society. But as of right now, I wouldn't immigrate. I would go for a vacation probably.
But maybe to the moon, see the Earth and stay there for a week and come back or something.
Yeah, that'd be wild.
Okay, so imagine this. One of your descendants has grown up on Mars, like 100 years from now, 200 years from now, 300 years from now. She's in high school and she's in history class. And she's doing a history class on the 2020s, this time in history where we are right now. is there anything that you think would be kind of key about this time that you'd like to share with her?
Hmm. That's a really deep question, I feel, especially in light of the last 3 years with the COVID-19 pandemic and just the, you know, political climate and everything else going on. I think the thing that we're seeing a lot that I consider the biggest threat to our society right now is disinformation and honestly people's lack of ownership in the news and the information they're consuming and sharing and the way that they understand it. I think now more than ever, we're lacking a lot of critical thinking as a society. It seems that so many people want to look for an easy answer, whether or not it makes sense. People want kind of the quick and easy answer to very, very complicated problems. And so I would tell her that I think that's very important. And if she's grown up on another on another planet, then hopefully we figured out how to handle that better as a society, how to teach that to our younger generations. And I think that's so critical right now.
I think about what it would be like living on Mars and how difficult that would be. You know, you would have to be in like some type of a building or suits all your life. You never could go outside and enjoy the outside air. You'd always be wondering, will you be able to have enough oxygen, food?
Yeah.
It'd be like this techno poverty. And I try to imagine who would even want to go do that? You know, what would drive people to do that? And one of the things that kind of I could imagine is people finding the human problems here on Earth, and like World War III, disinformation, being so much more difficult to deal with than the natural problems of Mars, that might actually be a thing that causes some people to say, you know, it's difficult, but I understand it. What do you think?
Yeah, I mean, I work with a lot of more scientifically minded folks or, technically inclined. And I know a lot of very intelligent people who would say, if I could just talk to computers all day, I would be happy. If I didn't have to deal with people, I would be happy. I would be way happier just doing my job or working with computers or robots. So I definitely think there are some people that could make it work and that would want that. I know my dad is one of them. He flew helicopters in the Army and is a big space buff, and he would be the first person to volunteer to go. So I definitely think that you could get some people to do it. I think that you probably have a good point there.
Well, I want to thank you again, Amy, for keeping our appointment even though you're on vacation. If there's, is there anything that you wanted to talk about or any questions you had before we kind of wrap up?
I think what you're doing is really cool and interesting, and I'm so impressed that you've made the career change to NASA, and like, wow, that is so brave, and I just think it's so cool. I guess my question would be, I've always been a fan of like science fiction, and I do like love the idea of space, but how does someone get into that? How would I become a space person?
That is a very good question. I mean, there's definitely like groups of people around around the country and around the world, like astronomy clubs. There's like this National Space Society, which we have a local chapter here that I put together in Houston. So, finding a group of people like that might be one good way. There's lots of online forums and YouTube channels and lots of other things like that.
Where do you go for your, is there like a Space Digest out there? Oops. Did I lose you? Oh, sorry. Like for example, when I want kind of the cliff notes of business, I'll look at the Wall Street Journal. I might flip through, you know, a few other news sources. Is there somewhere that's your kind of go-to if you were to, hey, I heard about XYZ, I want to learn more about it?
Yeah, I would say spacenews.com. So
Okay.
you talk about an aptly named site.
Yeah, no kidding. Almost sounds like you just made that up on the spot, but I trust you.
Yeah, no, it's a real thing. They even have a physical publication too. So, but spacenews.com. Yeah.
Cool.
That I would say that would be the most reputable, most broad site. That's definitely cool.
Awesome.
Well, thank you so much, Amy. I'll let you get back to your vacation. And if you know anybody else that'd be willing to have this conversation, I have more than 1,000 days to go.
Awesome. I do know a few actually that I will pass your information along to.
I appreciate that. Enjoy Arizona. Take care.
Okay, thanks. Bye.